Welcome to Global Route. If this is your first time here, you're in the right place. This channel is for people who want to understand defense, security, and regional issues in a calm and straightforward way. No noise, no exaggeration, just clear explanations and real context. Today's video is one of those stories that's better watched all the way through. Each part connects to the next, and by the end, you'll see why what's happening now matters more than it first appears. If you enjoy content like this and want more discussions that take their time and respect your attention, consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow and lets you stay updated on future uploads. Now let's get into today's story, the silent disarming of JS Sendai. For the first time in generations, something unusual is happening inside a Japanese naval base. A frontline warship, not a museum piece, not a training hulk, is being quietly disarmed. Missile launches are coming off. Torpedo systems are being removed. Combat electronics are being disconnected. No ceremony, no public announcement. No press release, just silence. The ship is JS Sendai, hull number DE-232, a destroyer escort of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. And what's happening to her is not routine maintenance. This is preparation. Because JS Sendai belongs to a class of warships now widely believed to be destined for transfer to the Philippine Navy, and the removal of her weapons may be the clearest signal yet that this plan has moved beyond talk and into action. Tonight, we break down what is happening to JS Sendai, why Japan is removing her weapons, what this means for the Philippines, and why this move matters far beyond a single ship. Stay with us until the end. A ship with a long memory. To understand why JS Sendai matters, we need to go back more than 3 decades. JS Sendai was commissioned in 1990 at the tail end of the Cold War. She is the 4th ship of the Abukuma-Class destroyer escorts, a group of compact but highly specialized vessels built for one primary mission: anti-submarine warfare. Despite the destroyer escort label, the Abukuma-Class was never designed to fight large surface battles. Instead, these ships were optimized for tracking submarines in shallow waters, escorting larger fleet units, conducting regional patrols, protecting sea lanes close to Japan. They were built for endurance, not glamour. For over 30 years, JS Sendai served quietly as part of Japan's layered maritime defense, especially against submarine threats in nearby seas. She operated during a period when Japan's Navy focused less on power projection and more on defensive sea control. And in that role, the Abukuma-Class proved extremely reliable. Small ships, big purpose. Technically speaking, the Abukuma-Class occupies a rare middle ground. They are larger than patrol vessels, simpler than modern frigates, designed for sustained operations with relatively small crews. They feature a combined diesel and gas propulsion system, helicopter facilities without a hangar, compact sensors optimized for ASW, modest but effective command systems. They were never cutting edge, but they were practical, affordable, and durable. And here's the key point. These are exactly the kinds of ships the Philippine Navy currently lacks in sufficient numbers. The images that changed the conversation? Recently, new photographs began circulating among defense analysts. They showed JS Sendai in port, but something was missing. Her missile launchers were gone! Anti-submarine weapon components were being removed. Fire control systems tied directly to combat operations were offline. This was not a downgrade. This was not damage repair. This was intentional. Japan does not strip weapons from active frontline ships without reason. And that reason points in only one direction: transfer or retirement. But retirement alone doesn't explain the scale of what's being removed. Japan's quiet rules on military exports. To understand what's happening, you need to understand Japan's defense export philosophy. Even after relaxing its post-war arms export restrictions, Japan remains one of the most cautious military exporters in the world. There is a strict separation between platforms, ships, aircraft, vehicles, weapon systems, ammunition, and strike capabilities. Exporting a hull is politically manageable. Exporting missiles is not. So when Japan transfers military equipment, especially warships, it almost always removes offensive weapon systems, sensitive fire control components, integrated combat software. This allows Tokyo to stay within legal boundaries, avoid regional escalation narratives, frame transfers as defensive capacity building. In short, a ship can move, the weapons usually cannot. Why the weapons must go first? There's another reason for the disarming, and it's just as important. The Philippine Navy does not operate Japanese combat systems. Leaving Japanese weapons installed would create major logistics problems, maintenance dependency on Japan, training mismatches for Filipino crews. By stripping JS Sendai down, Japan creates what naval planners call a blank canvas that allows the Philippines to install Western or mixed origin weapons, integrate systems compatible with existing doctrine, upgrade at its own pace, on its own terms. This isn't about weakening the ship. It's about making it usable. Disarming is not cheap or casual. Here's the part many people miss. Removing weapons from a warship is expensive, time-consuming, often irreversible without major reinvestment. You don't do this unless the ship's future role is fundamentally changing. No Navy strips an active combat ship unless, 1, it is leaving frontline service, 2, its ownership or mission is changing. That's why analysts are confident this isn't a rumor anymore. JS Sendai is being prepared for life after the JMSDF. The Philippine Navy's growing gap. Meanwhile, across the sea, the Philippine Navy is in a difficult transition phase. New frigates are arriving, but slowly. Older ships are retiring quickly. This creates a dangerous gap. Not enough hulls to maintain presence. Too few platforms to cover choke points. High-end ships forced into low-end patrol roles. The Abukuma-Class fits neatly into this gap. They are ideal for patrol and escort missions, capable of basic ASW tasks, large enough to operate offshore, simple enough to maintain affordably. With proper refitting, these ships could free modern frigates for high-end missions, expand presence in the West Philippine Sea, strengthen maritime awareness in key areas. This isn't about prestige, it's about numbers, sustainability, and presence. A shift hidden in plain sight, JS Sendai's disarmament isn't dramatic. There's no flag-lowering ceremony, no farewell speech, no announcement, but sometimes the quietest moves are the most significant. A Cold War escort is being transformed, not into scrap, but into possibility. And this story is only beginning. Narrator, closing tone. In part 2, we'll break down what happens next, the inspection process, the likely number of ships involved, and how a Japanese warship actually becomes a Philippine one. Because the removal of weapons from JS Sendai isn't the end of the story, it's the opening chapter. From quiet talks to physical transfer. By the time a warship begins losing its weapons, most of the important decisions have already been made. What the public sees, the removal of launchers, sensors, and combat systems, is not the beginning of the process. It is the visible middle. Because long before JS Sendai's armament started coming off, quiet discussions were already happening between Tokyo and Manila. And those discussions were not theoretical. The stage before the spotlight military transfers do not begin with ships, they begin with paperwork. Long before any hull is inspected, both sides must agree on fundamental questions. Is the platform politically transferable? Does it align with defense cooperation agreements? Can it be framed as defensive, not escalatory? Does the receiving Navy actually need this capability? In the case of Japan and the Philippines, the answers increasingly pointed in the same direction. Yes. Why Japan is letting go? From Japan's perspective, the Abukuma-Class is reaching the end of its intended service life. These ships are not failing, but they are aging. They were built in the late 1980s. Their systems reflect a different era of naval warfare. And Japan's current maritime strategy is shifting toward larger, more capable surface combatants, advanced missile defense, integrated operations with allies. Maintaining older escort ships no longer fits neatly into that vision, but scrapping them would be wasteful. Because while these ships may be old by Japanese standards, they remain highly relevant for navies focused on regional patrol, presence, and deterrence. That's where the Philippines comes in. A navy in transition. The Philippine Navy is modernizing, but modernization is uneven. New assets are arriving, modern frigates, offshore patrol vessels, missile-capable platforms, but at the same time, World War II-era vessels have only recently been retired. Maintenance demands are rising, coverage requirements are expanding. The result is a classic problem. Too many missions, not enough hulls. High-end ships are being used for low-end tasks, and that's not sustainable. What the Philippine Navy needs is not more prestige ships. It needs reliable mid-level workhorses, where the Abukuma-Class fits. This is where the Abukuma-Class destroyer escorts become strategically valuable. They sit in a sweet spot, more capable than patrol craft, less complex than modern frigates, large enough for extended operations, simple enough for manageable upkeep. They can perform presence patrols, escort missions, maritime domain awareness tasks, basic anti-submarine operations. That means newer Philippine frigates can focus on high-end deterrence, coalition operations, advanced combat roles. In naval planning terms, this is called force balancing. And it's exactly what the Philippine Navy needs. The inspection phase. Once political intent exists, the next phase begins quietly. Joint inspection. This is not ceremonial. Teams examine hull integrity, propulsion systems, electrical networks, auxiliary machinery, habitability spaces. They are not asking, is this ship modern? They are asking, is this ship structurally sound enough to justify transfer and refit? Early indicators suggest the answer for ships like JS Sendai is yes. The Abukuma-Class was built conservatively, strong hulls, proven systems, and generous safety margins. That's why they've lasted this long. How many ships are we talking about? Despite online speculation, this is unlikely to be a mass transfer. Analysts expect a limited number. Most estimates range from 2 to 6 ships. Why so few? Because each ship requires refit funding, crews must be trained, logistics chains must be established, weapons decisions must be made. This is not about numbers for numbers' sake. It's about absorbable capability. Why the ships will arrive unarmed. If transferred, these ships will arrive in a non-combat configuration. No missiles, no torpedoes, no Japanese fire control systems. This is deliberate. It gives the Philippine Navy freedom. Freedom to decide what weapons to install, which sensors to prioritize, how to integrate with existing doctrine. Possible options include Western origin guns, lightweight anti-ship missiles, locally supported combat systems, or initially, no weapons at all, using the ships purely for patrol and presence while upgrades are phased in. This approach reduces risk and cost. The timeline reality. This process will not happen overnight. Even under optimistic conditions, the timeline looks like this. Year 1, inspections, agreements, legal clearance. Year 2, physical transfer and basic refit. Year 3, plus gradual upgrades and operational integration. This is not a symbolic donation. It's a multi-year capability building effort. Why timing matters. All of this is happening during a critical moment. Maritime pressure in the region is increasing. Naval activity is intensifying, and gray zone operations are becoming routine. Japan is deepening security ties across Southeast Asia. The Philippines is accelerating its Re-Horizon modernization program. The overlap is not coincidence. Japan gains a stronger regional partner, shared maritime awareness, stabilized sea lanes. The Philippines gains immediate hulls, operational breathing room, time to modernize properly. This is strategic alignment, not charity. A ship between two futures, JS Sendai now exists in an in-between state. No longer fully Japanese, not yet Philippine, the weapons are gone. Her future is undecided, but narrowing. She represents a broader shift, from Cold War legacy to regional cooperation, from silent escort to shared security platform, and her journey is still unfolding. From opportunity to force multiplier. By the time a ship like JS Sendai reaches the final stage of transfer, the hardest decisions are no longer diplomatic. They are practical, because receiving a warship is not the same as using one effectively. What determines success is not the age of the hull or the name painted on the side, but what comes next. And for the Philippine Navy, what comes next will define whether this transfer becomes a temporary solution or something far more important. What rearmament really means. When people hear that JS Sendai would arrive without weapons, the assumption is often negative. But in reality, this is where flexibility begins. Rearming does not mean copying Japan's original configuration. It means designing a setup that fits Philippine realities. That includes budget constraints, existing logistics systems, crew training capacity, mission priorities. Instead of trying to turn the ship into a high-end combatant, planners can focus on mission-appropriate capability. And that changes everything. Likely weapon configurations. Realistically, any rearmament would be modest and phased. The most probable upgrades include a modern naval gun for surface warning and patrol, short-range surface-to-surface missiles for deterrence, improved radar and communication systems, basic electronic warfare and decoy systems. Anti-submarine warfare could be addressed gradually using hull-mounted sonar upgrades, helicopter-based ASW assets, cooperative operations with newer ships. This approach keeps costs manageable and avoids overloading an older platform. The goal is not dominance. The goal is presence with credibility. Cost, the uncomfortable reality. There is no avoiding the financial question. Even a stripped-down warship is not cheap to operate. Refitting costs could range from several hundred million pesos per ship for minimal upgrades to several billion pesos for more capable configurations. But compared to buying new ships from scratch, the savings are significant. More importantly, these ships buy time. Time for local shipbuilding capacity to grow, training pipelines to mature, modernization programs to stay on schedule. In defense planning, time is a resource, and this transfer provides it. Training and integration hardware is only half the equation. Crews must be trained. That includes engineering systems, navigation and ship handling, new combat systems, damage control procedures. This is where Japan's role could continue, not as an operator, but as a partner. Training assistance, not documentation support. Technical familiarization, not dependence. Partnership. How these ships would be used if transferred, these ships are unlikely to be pushed into high-risk frontline confrontations. Instead, expect them to be used for sustained patrols, presence missions, escort duties, maritime domain awareness. Their value lies in consistency. A ship on station is influence. A ship seen regularly is deterrence. A ship that doesn't break down is stability. This frees newer Philippine assets to focus on missions where advanced capabilities truly matter. Strategic impact beyond tonnage, the importance of this transfer goes beyond numbers. It signals deeper Japan-Philippines defense cooperation, a shift toward shared regional responsibility, a practical response to gray zone pressure. It also shows a new model of support, not flashy, not escalatory, but functional aging platforms repurposed into active contributors to regional security. What happens if the transfer doesn't happen? Even if negotiations stall, the story still matters. Because the removal of weapons from JS Sendai signals a trend. Japan is reassessing its older fleet. Southeast Asian navies are looking for affordable capability. And regional security demands more ships, not just better ones. JS Sendai may be the first. She will not be the last. A ship at the center of a shift, JS Sendai began life as a Cold War escort, quiet, uncelebrated, focused on a single mission. Decades later, she stands at the center of a different kind of story. One about adaptation, about partnerships, about using what already exists to meet today's challenges. If transferred, she will not arrive as a finished product. She will arrive as potential. The decision that matters most. In the end, the most important choice is not Japan's, it's the Philippines. Whether these ships become temporary stopgaps or carefully integrated force multipliers, that decision will shape how effective this opportunity truly becomes. Narrator, closing calm and confident. The quiet removal of weapons from JS Sendai is not an ending. It is a signal that regional security is changing, that cooperation is becoming more practical, and that sometimes the most important moves happen without announcements. If you stayed until the end, you now understand why this story matters. And if you value discussions like this, thoughtful, detailed, and grounded, subscribing helps keep them coming. This is Global Route, and we'll keep watching the developments that shape our maritime future.